All right. It is Monday, and you know what that means? Another dose of mojo. I'm Anna Gibbs, your host for this exploration of topics and thoughts that really can help you examine your life and your business and have you really reaching for more. And that's what I want to talk to you about. I'm recording this podcast in the beginning of July, and that means we're in the middle of the year. And at this mid year point, how are you feeling? How are you feeling about the path you're on? How are you feeling about the pursuit of your goals? And more importantly, how are you feeling about wanting a little bit more? Because I believe you can be very grateful for your life and really appreciate all the things that you have going on in it and still feel like something might be missing. So, if that's you, this episode is definitely going to help you start to really get clear about what it is that you want, what it is that might feel like it's missing, and more importantly, how to get on track so that you can have more of the things that support you and inspire you and sustain your growth. Because I believe, as you know, I've said this, I believe that for whatever time we have in this world, we should really look to see how to make it the most rewarding and exciting life we can. And look, that doesn't mean that every day is going to be magical and powerful and inspiring and about creating something big. I think that we're going to have some exciting days, some good days, some off days. We're going to have opportunities, we're going to have challenges. And I'm right there with you. Not every day is the same in my life either. But what is constant is my desire to figure it out every day. My desire to achieve the things that I feel are a part of my vision, my growth plan for myself, and really try to step out into an authentic place. And, I have to tell you, that's not always easy. I think that sometimes our environment has a lot of influence over how we show up. And it can happen to the best of us, myself included, where sometimes you can get a little lost in that environment. And you just have to remember who you are and you have to bring it back to center. And you have to be willing to examine how to reconnect with your authentic self. And when you do, that's where magic happens. When you can really connect with your strengths, when you can really put yourself out there in a way that just creates this open door for the right people to step into it, that is where you can be of the highest service, regardless of whatever career path you're on or industry you're in or vocation you're connected to. I think we all have incredible things to give. And that's what makes life exciting, right? When we realize that even on those days where we feel a little overwhelmed, on those days where we might even feel a little off track, that we know we have the power to bring it back and that we have the power to examine where we are in our life at any moment and just ask ourselves, is this working? And look, it's okay to realize some things are not working. I know at first it might feel heavy or even a little sad for some things. It might even feel a little daunting, but it's just an opportunity. So if something doesn't feel right, this is a great time of year at this mid-year point for you to examine that and for you to figure out what shift or adjustment might need to be made. And sometimes it's just the littlest things. Sometimes it could be a shift in your own mindset. Sometimes it could be a change of course in some way. Maybe it is looking at how you approach things differently. Maybe it is a different environment. Maybe it is going to be an opportunity for you to create some change. And all of that is good. It's exciting and really nothing to fear, but it's really about figuring out what is next for you. Now, before you get into figuring out what could be next, I think there's a lot of value in reviewing where you've been. And I was just having dinner with a friend of mine. I invited her over and we just had some salad and sat and talked out on my deck. And she was great in terms of helping me get some clarity around this, which is what really inspired today's podcast because I wanted to share that with you. And I think, what we talked about was celebrating how far you've come especially if you feel like something's off track, if you feel like something is out of alignment in your life or in your career. It is important that you reconnect with your own accomplishments, reconnect with your strengths, your skill sets, and celebrate and revisit all of the great things that you've accomplished up until now. What are some things that you have done in your professional space? What are some things that you could really connect with and remember and see the impact? I think sometimes at the moment that we're accomplishing something, we don't always recognize the impact it might be having on other people. But then when we look back, we can certainly see, wow, like that one conversation or that project created so many new and exciting things, and so many people benefited from that. And I think that is worth revisiting and celebrating, right? Because you want to stand in your truth and stand in your power, especially if your current environment has you feeling defeated, or if your current environment has you feeling like maybe something is off on your end. And here's the thing that my friend Magdalene, I'm going to give her a shout out for that, said to me. She said, look, maybe it is you. But here's what I think you have to understand about that, that maybe it is you, not that you're doing something wrong, not that you've stopped doing something, not that you're less than, or that anything per se has changed about your talent. It just might mean that you've hit a ceiling at the space that you're in, or wherever you are. You've hit a ceiling, and that maybe you're not as effective as you once were, but just in the current environment you're in. And that's where something might need to change. And, it's okay to know that. It's okay to look at what has to be different and understand that the only thing you can control is yourself. The only thing that we can control is our mindset, our actions, and that's going to bring results always. And so I can't change everybody around me, but I can change what I'm doing. I can change what I'm thinking and feeling, and that makes all the difference. And so that was a great part of our conversation. And I think it's an important part of you reflecting and processing and celebrating how far you've come before you start to figure out what's next. So I think it's about reviewing sort of a timeline in your life. And I have this great download for you that we're going to put together that'll give you all these questions. So don't worry. But what you're going to do is you're going to review your timeline, and you're going to start to insert in that timeline all your wins, right? It could be professional wins, personal wins, financial wins, wins around your relationships, your health, right? And if you could take some time, and it might take a little time, right? You might have to spend a couple hours on this, but it would be so, I think, gratifying, rewarding, revealing for you to be able to really just go back and celebrate wins and examine all of these successful milestones you've had that have brought you to this very moment in time, and what is going to give you the fuel to now continue your path or figure out, what's next. And I think we can do this at any moment, but look, there's something about certain times of the year that just makes sense. We spend a lot of time at the end of the year reflecting and then setting goals for January and the next 11 months after it. I think the mid-year point right now is a great time to really take some stock, take some inventory in where you are. And you can do this in a big picture way about your life in general, or you can get very micro and do this with your job, with your business. Where did you intend to start the year, and how did you think the year is going to play out in terms of your business goals? And then review what you've accomplished up until now in the first 6 months, and just get honest with yourself about it. And no judgment, no blame. Just try to stay neutral and just really analyze what worked, what didn't work, and what changes have to take place. What do you need to do differently to really close the gap and either get back on track, or just again close the gap and get closer to where you want to be at the end of the year. And I also think it's important to do these mid-year reviews because you didn't have all the information in January in terms of what the year was going to start to look like, right? How it was going to roll out economically, socially and all the different factors that play in. So now you've got 6 months under your belt and you're seeing how things are moving. You can sort of interpret trends. And I think now you'll have a better vantage point when it comes to figuring out what you need in order to finish the year. So that is really important in a professional way. But I think it's also important personally too. And I'll just say this, if you haven't set goals for yourself personally, it's not too late to do that right now. I mean, goals are really important for our growth. And I think that in the next 6 months, you could do a lot to change your life or at least get started. Understand that any moment on any day is fine for you to say, I claim this moment as the beginning of something else or something new or something bigger. And I think that you have the power to really change your life and just start asking yourself some questions that will help you determine the direction you want your life to go in. It's not about just letting life happen to you. It is about looking at how you want to design this one life that you get. It is about looking at what your options are and your choices. I think that, going back to the conversation around goal setting, the reason why goals are so important is because it gives us direction and it helps us think strategically. I think it can also do a lot to inspire us to take action. And that's really what goals and dreams and vision allow you to do. So it puts you on a path and gives you this direction to go into. And then it creates definition around your values. I think your goals are a reflection of your values, which means that you get to decide how you want to live out your life, not just what you want to do or where you want to go or what you want to accomplish, but in the manner in which you want to do it. Because our values are the rules we live by. And our values really give us, that foundation of what is important to us, what's significant. And so if your goals can line up with your values, then you create more meaning in the things that you're doing and therefore create more meaning in your life as a whole. And I think that when your goals align with your values and you allow yourself to step into your dreams a little bit and create that significance and that meaning, it brings a new level of excitement to your life. And that might be what some of us need at this mid-year point. I think that we start the year, a lot of us start the year really strong. We get excited about the goals we set. I mean, you see it all the time, right? The gym is full in January, but then by March 1st, it seems like there aren't as many people in there in the morning, right? And listen, at the moment that we set our goals, I believe that our intentions are there, our intentions are real. But some things happen along the way. Sometimes we lose sight of what we were intending to accomplish. Sometimes we even get bored with the path, right? Because a lot of our goals are big and can't be accomplished in a day or a week or even a month. A lot of our goals are really going to take the whole year or maybe beyond that. And so as we stay on track with all the activities, sometimes it's boring because it is about the consistency and sometimes the monotony of the activity that builds the habit that equals the success. That if we don't see that through because we get a little bored with it, then that could find us off track. So I think that when your goals are lined up with things that matter to you, and we can reconnect with that big why, right? What is the reason behind the goal? That will help us stay on track. So that's huge. I think it's about making sure that we do identify goals, but more importantly, why the goal is so important. And that's another question that's going to be on this worksheet for you is when you examine your goals, how do you want to feel in the pursuit of those goals? What is important to you in terms of your feelings, in terms of the way you see yourself living your life or experiencing your business? I think it's important for you to do that. And, maybe on a scale of 1 to 10, ask yourself right now, where are you in terms of feeling really fulfilled, which would be number 10, or feeling very lost, which might be 1? Where are you on that scale? And if you find yourself anywhere less than 10, okay, then let's get clear about what it is that you need to do differently or how so that you can feel differently and how do you get to a 10. Another thing that I think we want to examine in the middle of the year now is just a couple of things around our energy, a couple of things around our health, our mindset. And look, I believe that mindset is a word that gets used and overused sometimes. I think first we have to give permission to ourselves and be okay when we realize that we're having an off day. If you're having an off day, it's just a day. And maybe it's even just an hour or two. That doesn't mean that you have a negative mindset. And I think it's important that we don't judge ourselves for that or allow other people possibly to put us in that box or label us. I think that when there's a pattern of negativity, when there's a pattern of negative thoughts, when there's a pattern of disassociation, when there's a pattern of someone not working to solve the problems around them, then I could say, okay, there's a mindset issue. But look, just having an off day doesn't mean that you have a negative mindset. It just means that something is going on that you need to connect with and examine and work to feel differently. And I think it's important for us to get clear about that. Now, as you're thinking about it, I think another thing for you to put down in your notes might be when you think about how you want to feel, I want you to get descriptive. I want you to really, remember there are lots of adjectives in our English language. Use them. So I want you to really just kind of free write, and there's plenty of space in the worksheet for it. I want you to just write down different words that excite you, that resonate with you, that reflect how you want to feel, that reflect elements of your goals, and just get really into listing all of these great descriptors, all these great adjectives, because I think that is also going to give us some energy and clarity around, the life we want to design because we want to feel a certain way in the achievement of it. And again, that's not to say that we're not going to experience some stress, that we're not going to experience challenges. It doesn't mean that the goal is to feel woohoo every day, but it does mean that we want to stay centered on how a balanced life feels for us. And when we do have those off days, when we do have the challenges that show up, when we do have those projects that really stretch our limits, or when there's a shift in the economy, the market, and your business, that we know we have the fortitude to figure it out and the strategic thinking to do so. All of that is really important, but it's really about your overall sense of how you want to feel every day doing it, even on the hard days. I think that's the goal. And it's never for perfection, but it's always for progress. So I want you to ask yourself how you're feeling day to day right now, and more importantly, how you want to feel going forward. And use as many adjectives as you possibly can to describe that. Because this is your opportunity to figure out where you want to go from here. And I think that you, as I said, could do anything you put your mind to. It's not just some inspirational phrase, guys. I know that we've heard this, maybe some of us even from when we were 5 years old or whatever, but it's true. If you can conceptualize it, you're halfway there. If you have a vision, it's there for a reason. If you really put your mind to it, there's nothing you couldn't either start or change over the second half of this year. So, in order to do it, though, you have to be clear about what you want. So, it's time to do that. It's time to claim it. It's time for you to examine where you are at this moment, what's working, what's not working, where do you want to go from here, what needs to change, what do you need to do less of, what do you need to do more of. Sometimes, again, it's the small little tweaks that can make huge differences. It may not be necessary to totally blow up your life and change everything to have a whole different way of thinking and living and building over the next 6 months. I mean, imagine if we could pan out from there and we think about the momentum we could create in these next 6 months. and what you could begin, what you could end, what you could start to change, and how that starts planting the seeds to continue into next year. Where could you be in 12 months from now? Could your life basically be unrecognizable? Could you make so many great changes that you really are inspired to do more of the things that matter to you? It could be in your health, it could be in your relationships, certainly could be in your business or career, it could be in your spirituality. The Wheel of Life is a great exercise for you to do at this moment. So we'll have that also as part of the workbook that you'll be able to use. And the Wheel of Life is an assessment tool in case you haven't used it before, or maybe you're new to Mojo, because I use this tool a lot in my coaching and consulting and helping people really get clear and assess where they are at any moment. And so the Wheel of Life is really a reflection of your entire being, right? All the different aspects of your life. And so it is broken down into 8 categories. And you're going to have an opportunity to take a look at that and just be honest and assess how fulfilled you feel in each area. And those areas are a lot of the ones we've talked about: health, wealth, finances, your relationship, spirituality, career. And so you're going to take a little time to assess how full you feel in each area. You're going to actually color in the sections of the wheel. And I love the fact that it's visual, because when you take a step back and look at where you fall in each area, if you could picture the wheel divided up into slices, it looks like a wagon wheel. And, if you're a 2 in one area and a 5 in another and an 8 in another and a 3, you could imagine what a bumpy ride that would be if it was a wheel. And again, it may not be that you're always going to be at the same level in every area of your life at the same time. I want to be clear about that. That's not the goal. But I do think that when you do this assessment and you really get clear about where you are in any of these areas of your life, you then get to decide what you want to start with. And maybe you start with 2 or 3 areas, whatever you feel is most important to you. Or sometimes you make that choice based on what we call the domino effect. In other words, if I start in this one area and start to make improvements or changes and my score goes higher, it's also going to affect this other area. So you might create this domino effect. So you're going to figure out what's right for you, and you're going to create a game plan. And again, this is not about trying to overhaul and go from 3 to 10. This is really about what is one thing you can do in that area that just moves the needle a little, makes you move from a 3 to a 4, maybe even a 5. And then as you start to see that, okay, now what can I do to make the 5 a 6? And you grow from there, because I want the growth to be sustainable for you. And I want you to feel in control again, because that's important too. Sometimes when we take inventory like this, we realize that maybe our score in this case is lower because we just have been a little asleep at the wheel. We haven't made it a priority. And so by doing so, you just kind of take your power back, which I think is everything. And so the Wheel of Life is a great tool. I do mine every quarter, and I look back to see where growth has happened or possibly where something has declined, which is normal. I just have to say that too. All of this, I want to normalize it, because again, you can't be a 10 in every area of your life. That's just impossible. And I'm not here to set you up for failure, right? That's not the goal. But I do think that, when we put attention to something, what we focus on does expand. And that's really the key. So you get to decide what's more important to you at this moment. But when you do put a lot of time and energy into one thing, it's plausible that something else might suffer for it. I mean, it's just what tends to happen because you put so much time and energy into something, and it is probable that you might find that something else is neglected. So just allow yourself some grace when you realize that. And the awareness is the key. That's really what this entire conversation is about. It's about using the opportunity at the midpoint of the year to assess where you are, and especially, as I said, to celebrate how far you've come, because that'll give you a lot of fuel in your tank. When you start to remember all the things you've accomplished and how you did it, what skills you have, what strengths you have, right? That's going to just give you a lot more fuel in your tank so that when you do sit down and figure out, okay, what's next? What am I going to really work on for the next 6 months and then into next year? You have that inspiration and you have that clarity, and then you can get into some strategic thinking. And the Wheel of Life is a great way for you to assess your life as a whole so that you can look at creating some goals. And I think sometimes when we see the different areas of our life reflected or illustrated on the Wheel of Life exercise, it's a reminder that some of these other things exist too. For instance, when you put a lot of time and energy into your health or your business, it's possible that a relationship might be suffering, or you realize, I haven't made my spirituality a priority. And that's different for all of us, of course, but it just brings to the surface all the different areas of our life that should matter. Enjoy working through that in this workbook that we're going to put in for you as a midlife review, as a midlife goal review. And I love hearing from you. I just want to say that too. So many of you reach out, you send me text messages, I've gotten emails and messages on social media. I've run into you in places and spaces, and I love hearing how anything that we talk about on this podcast resonates with you or has helped you. So please continue to do that. We have the Monday Morning Mojo Facebook group where you can also share your thoughts and share your progress. You know, if you work through this workbook, I want to know about it. And I think you can inspire other people by sharing it too. So continue doing that. And I do need to ask a favor. If you could please, right now, if you haven't already, follow us on your preferred podcast platform. We're on all of them: Apple, Spotify, Google, YouTube. And please share the episodes that you favorited and share them with someone else, because if it resonated with you, it's definitely going to help someone else too. So please continue to pay it forward and share this. I love seeing how it's grown. We are approaching our 100th episode, and I'm really proud of that. And I do this because I think we all need ways to connect. And I think we all need some support and we all need encouragement and we need the tools. More importantly, I think that we need to then have someone help us figure it out, create the strategy. That's why I love to create these workbooks and downloads for you so that you can do that, so that you can put the work in. And because it's in the doing that we see change, right? So I feel like that's huge. So thanks again, and I will see you next time.